Today's video will be continuing our Kaiser Domination series. And while in France, a situation unravels, with French elections happening. And well, we have a fascist victory after they got 70% of the vote there. But some other parties aren't impressed with it. Why did they become fascist? Well, revenge seeking. And well, they seek revenge on Germany. And at this point, across the country, there is communist rebels. In the south, yeah, in Brittany areas, in Normandy, and across rural areas. And quickly after rebelling, we can tell that this isn't going to end well. And well, a bunch of the groups meet up. One even takes Bordeaux, which is seen as the first major victory for communist forces. And it becomes a big morale boost. And in the north, they start advancing. And while these two groups break out, they manage to take Marseille. And at this point, they start taking over the south, with most of their support coming from this England. And then they connect these two fronts. You may be thinking it can't get any worse. Well, across huge areas of the fascist area, they end up with humongous loyalist revolts. And while in the south, they're mostly over here and in these areas. Well, now let's go against the fascist holdings. Well, over here, they revolt, with a group of communist forces quickly being overtaken by them. And then the fascist forces start getting overtaken. And while they start advancing south, and they advance in from this area, weakening the fascist hold. But the fascists push back against communist hold, which the communist forces quickly deal with their pocket of democratic resistance and quickly split them apart, leading to better supply, with the fascist forces pushing the democratic forces back into areas in the center to open up how well their supply lines are. And well, an English invasion of Scotland begins, with English forces, with England claiming it's the only way to save their country. You may be wondering, yeah, really? And while you might think there's no chance, well, let's be real. They just gained their army back so quickly in the early part of this war. They do quite well managing to advance towards the cities. As they advance all the way up to here and take over the Isle of Man, they start moving north. But Scottish forces manage to successfully push them back. And while a bit of back and forth happens, but realizing they're going to lose their independence, they push back. And at this point, we see Brittany have a nationalist forces revolt, which, due to this greatly weakens control over this area by the democratic forces. And with them quickly getting weakened, the fascist forces take advantage of this and push them back. But two groups of the democratic forces do well, with this one against fascist forces in the north. declares itself as a French Republic. And well, these areas have a lot of withdrawals happen. But while this was happening, the communist forces moved in on Bordeaux, with Brittany's national army being quickly put down. And at this point, where the French Civil War begins, with fascist forces pushing them back, and while communist forces pushing them back. They even push along the coast, connecting up with Italy, and they start moving north. And well, the fascist forces start pushing back against them. And well, let's go up to England soon. Not yet, but soon. As the democratic forces fall. Who's going to win? Not up here. After an English offensive that ends up failing, and they get pushed back to about here. They manage to push back a bit more, which secures it, and then they end up going to a peace treaty between Brittany and, well, England. Raged with what just happened, and they moved towards the German Empire for support in the future. Yes, they're revenge-stricken. With the communists deciding they need to strike fast. Why do they think they need to strike fast? Because they want victory as they move up north towards Paris. And along here, as they're throwing it all towards it. What they don't realize is, well, the fascists decide to launch an offensive here, quickly cutting this off, and that was a big chunk of the army, like 15%. And at this point, they start falling back. When Bordeaux falls, they get desperate. But another encirclement manages to happen, and they use this to push down, and they manage to get to the coast. And then they advance here, declaring the Fascist Republic of France. And well, there we have the Fascist Victory. And well, that's pretty much all for today's video. Please like, subscribe, and comment. Wild Mapper out, and until you subscribe. Bye, guys!